Sometimes a new wrestler gets a monster push and finds themselves being an overnight sensation. Case in point, Bill Goldberg, who entered WCW with a rocket strapped to his back and became one of the company's biggest stars. In other cases, a wrestler might get a big push, but he's unprepared for the big time. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 11 wrestlers who were too green to main event. Number 1. King Mabel. We've said it before and we'll say it again. 1995 was one of wrestling's most dismal years for the WWF fans, and nothing symbolizes it like the main event push of former Men on a Mission star Mabel, aka Nelson Frazier. When the WWF became short on main eventers, Mr. McMahon apparently took one look at the 500-pound behemoth and said, why not? With the company short on talent, McMahon ironically picked a wrestler who was himself short on talent. Mabel had managed to hide his in-ring shortcomings by working in the hip-hop tag team Men on a Mission, but he was a disaster in the ring when left to his own devices. Nonetheless, Vince made him 1995's King of the Ring winner and put him straight into the main event, with Mabel's sloppiness leading him to injuring The Undertaker. McMahon finally came to his senses and sent Mabel on his way. Frazier would work on his skills and return a few years later as Viscera. Number 2. The Great Khali. Vince McMahon's love for larger-than-life wrestlers is well known. McMahon's eyes must have bulged out of their sockets when he saw the Great Khali, an imposing physical specimen, and someone who might also help him with the WWE's growing market in India. The only problem was that Khali was so green that Shawn Michaels once had to tell him what camera to work from at the Royal Rumble. That didn't stop Khali from getting the monster push that comes with a monster heel, and Khali scored a squash win over Rey Mysterio and pinned The Undertaker at 2006 Judgment Day pay-per-view. While Khali won the World Heavyweight Championship, the WWE finally came to its senses and slowed his push, focusing on his talent as a comedy act. The Khali kiss cam and his Punjabi playboy gimmick helped wash the taste of Khali's ring work out of the fans' collective mouths. Number 3. Ryback. Ryan Reeves rose to fame in the WWE as Ryback, the wrestler always looking for new opponents to conquer. With the fans chanting "Feed me more" and the WWE giving him an undefeated streak, comparisons to Bill Goldberg quickly arose. However, when Ryback was quickly given a title match against CM Punk at Hell in a Cell, it became obvious that Ryback had been given too much too soon, as he was still lacking in the fundamentals of ring work. As often happens, some fans began raining on Ryback's parade, chanting Goldberg during his match. While some of Ryback's colleagues such as Mick Foley and Wade Barrett praised his work, CM Punk was no fan. During the 23rd September 2013 edition of Raw, Ryback blew a spot where he's supposed to gorilla slam Punk onto a table, only to miss, hurting Punk. Punk would later tell Colt Cabana on his podcast, "The incident took 20 years off my life." By one account, Punk confronted Ryback after the match and went off on him. And now it's at the point where I walk up to him and I go, "You can't tell me you didn't do that on purpose because you've done it so many times now. You either tell me right now you're dumb as f*** and you suck, or you did it on purpose." And he was like, "I'm dumb as f***. I'm sorry." Punk also labelled Ryback as a steroid guy and noted Ryback injured him on more than one occasion, including a stiff kick that broke his ribs. In 2014, Ryback appeared on the Talk Is Jericho show to defend himself. "Punk was always good to me when he was here, and I felt I was good to him. He was never like that to my face, and I felt we always had good matches for the most part on the live events. To leave and say the things he said, I try not to take anything personal anymore. So whatever he's going through, if he feels the need to say that, I can tell you it's not true. It's not one of those things. It's like, come on man. I don't understand if it's a personal thing with me. I don't know, but I have no ill feeling towards the guy. I wish him the best." Number 4. Tank Abbott. Following the success of UFC legend Ken Shamrock in the WWF, a desperate WCW decided to bring in UFC fighter Tank Abbott as a potential opponent for Bill Goldberg. Abbott was built up as a wrestler who possessed a knockout punch that could land at any time, quickly ending a match, thus posing a threat to any opponent, including WCW's main event star Bill Goldberg. Abbott seemed to be headed for the big time when WCW champion Bret Hart and top contender Jeff Jarrett were unable to perform at 2000's sold-out pay-per-view, and Vince Russo suggested Abbott be placed in the match and win the belt for a brief run. WCW executives were so astonished at the idea that they released Russo. Abbott's career turned into a comedy gig, as he was placed with WCW's boy band parody 3 Count. Number 5. Mr. Kennedy. There's no doubt that Ken Kennedy got over huge with his simple but highly effective ring entrance. The problem was what happened after the bell rang. While Kennedy showed promise, the WWE gave him a huge push far too soon. Not only was Kennedy green in the ring, but he had a bad habit for injuries to himself and opponents, as well as a big mouth that killed a potential career-making angle as Vince McMahon's illegitimate son. Kennedy won 2007's Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania 23, but was forced to give it up after what was thought to be a serious injury led to Edge winning the contract. The injury turned out to be far less serious than believed, but Kennedy's Money in the Bank contract was gone. In a 2010 interview, Kennedy blamed Randy Orton and John Cena for getting him fired. He told me to give him a belly-to-back suplex, and I did, and I thought everything was fine. I got to the back and he was holding his neck, saying that I dropped him on his head. He went to the back and lectured me about how I needed to be safe, and all this other stuff. He got 3 huge bags of ice, one on his neck, one on his left shoulder, and one on his right shoulder. He got them all saran wrapped, put his shirt back on, and we walked to the locker room, and he chewed me out the whole way there, calmly and quietly, but he told me that you need to be careful. I felt bad about it because I didn't know. I hadn't seen the tape, so I really thought I dropped him on his head. Then I went home and saw the tape and saw that he landed flat. If you slow the videotape down, his neck never comes in contact with the mat. So I'll let you watch the tape and you let me know what you think. He landed flat as flat can be, and then went and complained to Vince and then John Cena, and complained to Vince and said they didn't want to work with me anymore because I was dangerous, and that is what ended up being the final straw. I wouldn't say that's what got me fired because there were so many other things before that. It was like they were looking for a reason to get rid of me. Kennedy would fare better in TNA and improve his skills in the ring. Number 6. Snitsky. Who would have thought that punting a baby would lead to a major push for a wrestler? That's just what happened in 2004 when WWE newcomer Gene Snitsky cost Lita her storyline pregnancy, and Lita's baby daddy Kane sought revenge on Snitsky. Snitsky feuded with Kane in high-profile matches, including a brief alliance with Heidenreich against the Brothers of Destruction. However, his feud with Kane proved to be his heyday, which was probably for the best as his push far exceeded his ability. Number 7. Sheamus. The Celtic Warrior debuted in the WWE in June 2009, shocking fans when he defeated John Cena for the WWE Championship at December's TLC pay-per-view in a tables match. Despite this strong push, Sheamus's win seemed like a fluke and he dropped the title at 2010's Elimination Chamber just 2 months after winning it. Sheamus would regain the belt at 2010's Fatal 4-Way, this time with interference from the Nexus. While Sheamus's work vastly improved over the next few years, his early push was an experiment to create a new star that shows what happens when said star isn't ready for the main event. Number 8. Vladimir Kozlov. Ukrainian martial artist extraordinaire Vladimir Kozlov squashed low-level opponents while building up his undefeated streak. While Kozlov was a legitimate tough man, his professional wrestling skills were still developing, and he had no business in the ring when WWE put him into a WWE Championship match against Triple H at 2008 Survivor Series. His push continued with a clean pinfall win on 27 February 2009 edition of SmackDown, and rumours circulated that Kozlov would face the Dead Man at WrestleMania 25, rumours which thankfully did not become reality. His push eventually faded, and the only championship gold he would win would be the WWE Tag Team Championship with Santino Marella. Number 9. Nathan Jones. Australian strongman Nathan Jones started his grappling career in with the short-lived World Wrestling All-Stars promotion, winning the promotion's World Heavyweight Championship. After a stint in Pro Wrestling 01 Max, Jones joined the WWE, working briefly as The Undertaker's ally at WrestleMania 19, before heading to the WWE's OVW territory for seasoning. Jones returned to the main roster that fall as a heel ally of Brock Lesnar. He joined Team Lesnar at 2003 Survivor Series, but left the WWE in December, reportedly due to the grueling WWE schedule. In hindsight, it was probably for the best, as Jones didn't seem ready for the big push he seemed headed for. Number 10. Ludvig Borga. The WWE has an abundance of foreign heels, but Ludvig Borga was unusual that he hailed from Finland rather than the traditional heel nations such as the Soviet Union, Iran or Iraq. He mocked the United States and what he calls its many shortcomings, squashing jobbers as he was groomed for a feud against Made in USA Lex Luger. Along the way, Borga snapped Native American Tatanka's undefeated streak and seemed headed for big things. Borga joined the Foreign Fanatics at 1993 Survivor Series, battling Lex Luger's All-Americans in an unsuccessful match. Neither Borga or Luger were known for their in-ring abilities, so perhaps it's best that Borga left in WWF in 1994 before the fans realized just how green he was. And number 11. The Big Show. Paul Wight's career as The Big Show will forever be a source of debate, with fans wondering whether the big man was a victim of bad booking or a superstar who never lived up to his potential. While The Big Show's WWE career is marked by inconsistent pushes, his early run in WCW was anything but inconsistent. When WCW World Champion Hulk Hogan saw Paul Wight, he must have imagined how much money he could make in another program with a larger-than-life wrestler, just as he did against Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3. Hogan seemed so eager to recreate the magic he had with Andre that he hinted that Wight, who was billed as a giant, was Andre's son. While his ring skills would get significantly better, his main event match against Hogan at 1995's Halloween Havoc was almost as bad as the ridiculous monster truck battle between Hogan and the Giant earlier in the show. WCW didn't care that Wight wasn't ready for the big time and continued pushing him until his skills caught up with his push, unlike many of the wrestlers on our list. And a quick honorable mention, El Gigante. Wrestling is an entertainment medium that loves spectacle, with the saying, the bigger the better often applying. That's why wrestlers such as Big John Studd, Andre the Giant and such were box office attractions. However, vertical privilege doesn't always lead to talent in the ring. Something all too clear when WCW owner Ted Turner drafted former NBA player Jorge Gonzalez from the Atlanta Hawks to WCW. Billed at over 8 feet tall, Gonzalez was still an impressive 7 foot 7 inches and looked imposing in the ring. Sadly, his in-ring work was inversely proportionate to his height, and even the legend Nature Boy Ric Flair found it difficult carrying this 7+ foot broomstick to a decent match. Incredibly, WCW pitted El Gigante against Flair for the WCW World Championship, but they knew better than to make the match a main event, even at house shows. Gonzalez would work in the WWF as Giant Gonzalez, achieving an equal level of ineptitude in the ring, becoming notorious for his disqualification loss to The Undertaker at WrestleMania 9. But there you have it guys, 11 wrestlers who were too green to main event. Are we missing anybody else off the list? Let us know in the comments down below. Subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.